Okay, hi guys, welcome to round 5. Congrats on making it this far. This is not a silent round, so don't leave the room and never come back after the debate is over. Uh, Before we begin, actually, we're going to take out my tablet. But yeah, before we begin, I don't have a doing motion 3. Can I also get Gov and Ops Vito really quickly?
Second. Vito second.
Both of you guys, you got the second.
Yeah.
So just to re-clarify, this is a recorded round. If for any reason during the round you guys want to withdraw consent, that's fine. Just inform me, I'll go in front and pause the camera. Because it's a recorded round, can you guys can also speak from there, please? Thank you very much. Okay. And for context, this recording is to be posted on YouTube. So yeah, it's not for personal use. Okay, so what teams speak to the second? Wait, the tabs language. Can I get the speaking orders for both?
Vidhya, Nisha, Kero.
Gov is Vidhya, Nisha, Kero. Okay. Oh, can I get the speaking order?
Brendan first, Aiman second, Aaron and then Aiman reply.
Aiman second. Aaron third. Aiman reply. Got it. So we're doing this house believe that mainstream left with the party should embrace dirtbag left, in example campaigning in the tone of political messaging in discussion with opponents. So just quick house rule. I will be timing house pictures, but because like solo chair been difficult to give signal while also tracking. So all teams are encouraged to time themselves and time their opponents. You're highly encouraged to take device for a very engaging round. I don't think I have any further comments, so there's no other questions and all things are pretty clear about what's going on. I think we start the debate PM area.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, nowadays the political system and the entire party only talks about things that they want to talk about and they don't want to actually reveal whatever actually has happened. This is called sugarcoating everything, and sometimes it's totally opposite of whatever has even happened, or and it makes misdirect the people actually, right? So the burden for us for Gov side is actually really, really simple. If we can prove to you that which the political party can better cater to the people itself, we can actually take this debate, right? Okay, what does actually dirtbag look like, right? The dirtbag looks like these political parties embracing ideas and conversation that they don't want to hear about. They don't want to talk about things that make them uncomfortable. But in our side of the world, we push them to talk about it, to reveal every single thing, every single bullshit that they are doing, and every single policies, every single progresses that they are doing in order to just say it out, right? Just so, for example, how does it look like? Like you talk about the payroll of ministers, you talk about the quota system, but in status quo, the moment you utter a word about the quota system, like that day when the metric student actually talked to Anwar, raised up a question about to Anwar about the quota system, he was actually publicized. He was just like tarnished, right? Because the quota system is too sensitive for us to actually even talk about, but it's actually really, really important because we young generation want to know. See, just want to know how this shit works, right? How the quota system actually works, right? Another thing also we can talk about how this representation of political parties in the parliament itself, and you can talk about the corruption. We want transparency in everything that they actually do, like about the healthcare. What are the policies you do? What are the incentives you're giving people who are actually like B40 and sick? It's not totally published in the media or so whatnot, right? And okay, so why is this thing really important, right? Because this actually puts the political party itself in a very vulnerable situation to people. It's actually really important because we people are the voters to the government itself, are the voters to the public, are voters to the political party itself. So who have the right other than us to actually question them and give them opinions about how we actually want this country to actually evolve, right? And another thing is that it puts them also in a position, it puts the political party in a position where they don't have power and they cannot do whatever they want to do because they will have the sense of accountability because they are feared of like everything they will do. So how this is actually conducted in Gulf side, right? We will have interviews with the parties and they have to be really open. Like these media people will like question them about whatever your policies or things that you have done, but you have like hide it away from the camera and everything. So this will actually bring the sense of truth to the event itself, right? You be more open to every question that you ask about people, and what will happen, right? In our side of the world, we actually won't charge people, we actually won't give them penalty or charge them under defamation because these things that they say they are safe under our side because freedom of speech obviously exists, right? And you won't arrest them because you can freely voice out their opinions, and they're not only about the minister's conduct but also about how the policies are actually working, like what is the incentive, how sure are you that the actual policy like you're actually working. For example, the Jalo Gamilang policy that they came out in school, what kind of nonsense is that? I still thinking that it's going to increase the patriotism among students. No such thing. They don't care about it. My brother keeps it in the toilet. Okay? Please lah. Okay, nothing. Okay, still in status quo, right? What is the problem, right? The problem is the political party actually, they lack of transparency. They don't actually tell you whatever they need to tell you. The next, they lack of accountability because the moment they have power, they have power is that I don't care. I only care about my agenda, my profits, and whatever that I want to do in order to, see more profits, right? I mean, there are some people, okay, there are some people who actually care about their agenda because, the people can actually vote them out next time, but it's not all. We want to go into the roots of it, right? And next thing, the third thing is going to be about lack of engagement itself from the political party to the people itself, right? Which is actually really important, especially for young voters. They need to have this kind of engagement because these young voters are young, passionate, and really want to know about what's happening in the current society, current political system. But in your side of the world, you're not giving them a chance because you're bullshitting all way around, right? Okay, if to the fact of that we consider the fact that it may consist of vulgarity, it may consist of violence, certain things. But so what, right? Because vulgarity comes out in anything else, right? You open YouTube, you watch porn, that's vulgarity, but you don't complain about that, right? So this is actually something that educates the people itself, and we are telling that we can actually achieve the truthfulness and like educate people through this even more than your side. So it's actually okay. We consider the fact. Okay, my first argument is going to be like it actually increases the engagement between the public, between the party and the before that your PY.
In order for this uncomfortable conversation to work is to table it at Parliament with the preparation required. This means you can indeed discuss within the structure of the system.
Okay. Do you seriously want me to answer that PY, right? Okay, what do we see in Parliament right now, right? They flip table, they flip chairs. The actual intention, the actual motive, and the actual outcome is in the Parliament. And no, because we have a sense of urgency. Your late idea does not work in the 21st century where everyone just goes to the Parliament to we go to the Parliament to watch the fight, to watch everything, right? Because we have the sense of urgency when they only hear you. You can come out when we only get it when we actually die, when we actually shout. Even if we want to protest, you have to have the police permission, right? Even then, the ministers will come and actually block you and be like, oh, you can't say certain stuff in this protest because it affects my image and everything. So you can't come out and say that you want a table at Parliament. Nothing works like that anyway. I mean, fine. It might to some extent happen, right? But in Singapore itself, right? It's like to pass a bill itself, it takes so much of time and effort, and yet the bill is useless. Like the Jalu Gamilang one, right? Okay, coming back to my argument itself. Increases engagement, right? Because nowadays, as we can see, the voters' rates are really low, right? So this is because the voters do not trust the political system itself because they know that they cannot voice out. The moment they voice out about something sensitive, they're gonna get charged, right? So these people are actually sick of the narrative that political parties are giving out filtered and so on, especially young people, right? They don't want to talk about actual problems that the political system is actually going through. So what are you actually trying to give the society, right? People who actually voted for you, the people you're supposed to be catering for, you're just lying to them, right? Okay, 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 for example, that guy Fami, the influencer, right? He always does like these memes and everything about the political party, and they call out all the ministers and everything. He also gets charged for everything. But I'm telling you that it's in this way, actually, in this 21st century, you actually come and educate people about how, because youngsters will actually be more prone to watch your memes other than reading the parliament, what the records and everything, right? So this is actually in a way of education. So and when you actually embrace all these, right, young voters can actually call up if you actually screw up. You screw up, you'll be liable for it, right? And what is the impact, right? The impact is incentives to vote in political system, because people now have the sense of trust in the political system itself. So people will vote because your opinions and your question matter. Second impact is encouraged to take accountability, right? The political system parties will actually take accountability, and because they have to do stuff. And the third impact is the political parties have better policies because people are pushing them to do it, because you want to stay in the position, so you have to do whatever people are asking you to do. No means next election, bye. Get off.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Speech.
You.
Just touching the impacts. And touch the thank you.
Okay, I'm your LO, Brandon, and I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, need I remind you again of what this debate is truly about? It's not just those ministers who post about the current political findings, it's not just those whistleblowers who post about weird things that happen in parliament, it's not just those people who complain about existing things in the government, it's also those people who are in those online echo chambers like Reddit, YouTube, and whatever, who sit on the live stream, you ramble about the government providing absolutely no solution to whatever they're complaining about, who only provide extra hostile ammunition against the left, which are why we as opposition choose to not weaponize these dirtbag left as our main political push. We do not embrace them, we do not reject them, we just choose not to actively weaponize them, to push them against the left, to try to to push them against the right, to try to convert them, to try to change their mind or whatever. So the context is that on like these online platforms like YouTube, Reddit, whatever, there's these echo chambers, there's these people who just spout their opinions on and on and on. They keep rambling about existing issues, they keep rambling about existing wrongs, why government is bad, why government useless, why government everything. These people are not like contributing actual things to the society, to this discourse. They just spit vulgarity, they spit their own opinions with no one who are actually going to change their opinion as a result of this rambling. These people are talking to other left-leaning people, and just as a couple of responses, let's just get on with this. More exposure, they say it, more exposure. Why does this exposure then not matter? This truth is only spread to people who either already know, already support them. Let's just give illustration. So there's left, right, willing and unwilling people. Left no matter how, you either already support the cause or you're like already left, you're going to vote for that bill or you're already going to be outraged anyways. For the right-leaning individuals who are already in that chat room, already in that live stream, you sat in that live stream, you clicked into that live stream, you willingly sat in, listened to the guy ramble. I think as far as I'm concerned, you're pretty left already. You've already bought into the idea, you fundamentally come to the fact that you kind of support this guy. Sure. So, like, there's no change of opinion. Like, the fact that these people exist, it's symmetrical on both sides of the house. These people still exist. These people still go into these live chat rooms and whatever. They click in, they buy into their opinion. It's not exclusive. However, the main delta is that these, like, the right-leaning people who come into these chat rooms on your side of the house, they don't come in to get a new opinion. They come in to spread hate. When you come in, the person shouts vulgarities at you, screams why you're bad, why you're useless, why you're not good for society. What are you going to respond with? You're going to respond with more vulgarity. And they claim that there's like people, the current news is like bullshitting all the way around. Well, in both sides of this world, there are still neutral or left-leaning news houses. They go on TV, they go on newspapers, they write articles and the such. This is exclusive on both. This is not exclusive on either side of the house. Both houses have it. I'm not too sure why this is a problem on our side specifically. And you guys say there's a parliament, the flip table thing where parliament is useless, parliament dramatic, parliament doesn't write anything that's useful, doesn't help people. And then at the end of the speech, you come around to say that then people will in turn get more trust. Well, these dirtbag left people, they stick to their chairs and just ramble on and on about why government bad. Well, the government has lacked an actual mechanization as to how they went from parliament is useless, parliament not helping people, to go to people now have more trust in the parliament. So now to just go on with my burden for, I'll take your point.
Parliament policies currently is in touch with.
Yes, I would say so. They are made by people, they are elected members of, the elected representatives of the people. So my burden for government is simple. In order for government to win in order for government to win, they need to prove why these dirtbag left people are already needed when left-leaning political parties are already well-known and widely present in all of internet and the such. Yeah, so for my first argument, why there is less buy-in. Change needs participation. Participation requires trust. As the government have already illustrated, there's no trust in people in the current, government, especially in the circles of the dirtbag left. These people just sit there, ramble around about why government bad. Do you think their audience actually buys into the fact that the government can create change? This is not good for us because this is not good for the left-leaning political party because now you have a bunch of people who have no trust in government. They don't want to participate in government activities. They don't want to vote. They can't vote maybe because they're young, maybe because their demographics don't match. They might be from out of the country. They're just showing support. But these people who are opening the live stream, they think they're heard. They think they are doing something good for the left-leaning political party. However, that's not the case. So why we as left-leaning political party that doesn't actively embrace this dirtbag left wing is based on why we have more position to affect the people who are either on the fence or who are like actually on the right. So just a little bit of characterization in the context of these echo chambers. Dirtbag left, they just sit there, they do nothing for like actual political change. These left-leaning people who participate in this, they already have their opinions. They're already going to vote a certain way. You're not changing their opinions. These people, the right-leaning people who are in those echo chambers, they aren't there to change their opinion. They are just there to troll, they're there to spread hate, they're there to show that these people, they're just going to ramble back, they're going to spread hate speech. And then there's also the last group of people, the right-leaning people who are on the fence. They tune in, they kind of buy into this, and we are here to explain why our party better caters to the buy-ins for this group of people. So, our group, we have more position. We are more incentivized to help these people because we are not inherently vulgar. We treat them civilly, we approach them in a correct manner instead of just existing in these echo chambers online that you have to buy into, stay in, and to maybe change your opinion. So there's also a political demographic problem. These conservatives that genuinely believe them, they come into these echo chambers, and then they start hearing criticisms. They start, although they fundamentally believe in like VA rights and maybe like breaking down of massive corporations, in the end they leave with a bitter aftertaste because they feel that they are not wanted, they are not wanted, they are not accepted in this cause. And with that, I'm proud to oppose.
Thank you to the fellow for the first speech. By the way, I asked if you guys are okay with recording. I guys okay with the girls. Okay. Yeah, material debate. Vidhya, material.
Panel and members of the floor. Today, the opposition is only defending the status quo, and we've established to you that the status quo is in fact not efficient and not even effective, that caters towards people. And we've already explained to you why the status quo is extremely is inherently bad for the people itself, and why on our side we have a sense of urgency to even cater to these people, right? Now, in status quo, there are policies being made that are not being catered to people. Millions of ringgit have been wasted on a batch that's Jalo Gemilang that wants to promote patriotism, right? We tell you that there are other issues that needs to be addressed even more effectively, even more efficient. Why even this policy was passed in the first place, right? Of such discourses are not acceptable to be even happening, right? These discourses are feared to even happen. The moment you contradict a government's policy, you don't seem like a Malaysian. The moment you shit on the government, right, you don't seem like you're in favor of the government, or you're not Malaysian also in the first place, right? So we tell you that at least on our side, by embracing this dirtbag left, right, we're promoting a sense of urgency for government to even take action, right? For political parties to even cater to the people by actually having policies that would help the people, that would even make sure the people even participate in voting, which I will talk about in my speech later. Now, before I continue, a few rebuttals, right? They came out with the POI saying that there is parliament, that you could table such bills and whatnot, right? Let's tell you that on our side, it still happens. But what is unique on our side is they would table policies that would actually cater to people, right? They would table policies that's actually relevant to status quo, right? So things like, free healthcare, things like more seats for the minorities, things like that are actually pressing issues in current status quo in current in respective countries, right? We tell you that on our side, this will even push these parties to pass these policies in the first place. Because on their side, with no sense of accountability, with no sense of transparency, which Vidhya has already explained to you, the elaboration, we tell you that these political parties would push to pass these policies in order to even get their votes in the first place, right? Why so? We tell you that these people, the moment they embrace the dirtbag left wing, they would be often scrutinized, right? They would be under the spotlight, right? They would be constantly judged for their actions, the words, and any principles or policies they are vouching for within their parties. So which means that these political parties have the incentive to even make these policies that would cater to the people because they want their votes, right? Because they want to have the support of the people, because they know that the moment that they are not catering to the people, their position in the government, their position in the political party would reduce, right? Would be threatened. Now, next thing, they told you that there would be echo chambers where people will be rambling, people will be just spreading hate and vulgar. We tell you that that is not the case, right? We tell you that it happens in status quo itself, right? In Reddit, people still shit on government, but this is happening with fear, right? This is happening in the sense where it's being conducted in a very secluded places, in places where people are not actually voicing out in public because they're afraid that they will be put in jail. They're afraid that they will be arrested. They are afraid that legal action will be conducted. At least in this case, the moment political parties are actually welcoming such opinions, political parties are actually welcoming criticism based on their policies, they would know that what is the problem, right? Because they told you that we are not providing the solution. No, we are telling to people, we are telling to political parties what is the problem in the first place, because they are not acknowledging the problems that are actually affecting the people, right? The moment you open these discourses in public, the moment these political parties are actually embracing such left-wing ideology, right? We are telling you that social justice will get even more attention, right? Will get even more acknowledgement, right? And next thing, we tell you that echo chambers would not exist because there would be various radical opinions that will exist, right? People would actually have different opinions, even it'll be even more enhanced in our side, right? On their side, people will always have a sense of fear. People will always be sugarcoating. Will always have unfiltered. Will always have filtered opinions, right? Because they are afraid that what will happen to them. And it is already proven by Vidhya how like people are arrested and whatnot, right? Now, why would people would have why would policies be even more touched in reality, right? We tell you that no, what's that? We tell you that policies will be even more in touch with reality because people will push and pressure ministers and political parties to try for policies that will benefit them. How so? Now, in our side, right, media can now make headlines that is actually true because of the interviews that they get, because of the answers that they get. And before I continue, go ahead.
Without that left, we cannot ever criticize our government.
And criticism still happens in status quo, right? But how does it happen? On your side, criticism happens in a way that there is still a sense of fear, right? And it's never going to be achievable on your side because on our side, at least political parties will have the incentive to even embrace such criticism, right? Because they know that they want these voters to have a belief in them, to even vote for them in the first place. And we want to tell you why this is true. Because these days, voter turnout is extremely low, right? Young voters, people who are working, they have no energy to even support the government or to even pay attention to any policies that you're making, right? In order to even have engagement of these voters, to increase your voter turnout, such parties need to embrace such political dirtbag left ideology, right? It's necessary for them to even increase turnout, right? Because these are radical ideologies that would engage such voters who are sick of the old conventional narrative where it's inauthentic, filtered, and out of touch with reality, right? We already told you that why it's out of touch with reality because ministers do not want to talk about legal suits that these political parties are having. The members who screw up within the political parties, they do not want to talk about that, right? At least on our side, this time we can actually get answers, and even if they lie, even if they don't answer to these questions on our side, they will know that they will be held accountable, right? Because of the ideology that they're embracing, media will call them out because they are not afraid anymore to call them out, right? So what is the consequences? We tell you that these political parties are now putting themselves in a vulnerable state where they'll be often scrutinized, where they'll often be judged, right? So which this means that they would increase accountability, they would increase efficiency in the policies that they make. They would want to make policies that would cater to these people because of the support that they want to gain within their parties itself. Not only that, we tell you that we encourage accountability because they will, as I said, they'll always being judged by their actions and words, right? The responsibility to function would be even more enhanced. And not only that, we tell you that we would actually embrace resources and money and tax that are being paid to cater to such policies, especially when it's concerning present issues. And for all those reasons, proud to propose.
Let me declare for speech. Constitutionally, yes.
Yes. Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. First thing that I'm going to do is two simple call out. One, they never actually mechanized to us how these left-leaning political parties are going to embrace dirtbag left. Therefore, like in explaining how likely this dirtbag left is going to manifest. But also number two, they also lack the explanation to explain to us how is dirtbag left different to the current mechanism that already exists. Because note here, Judge, that dirtbag left have only, as so far right now, been manifested in online presence within online bubble, right? This means before dirtbag left, we already then have the capacity to criticize government. The difference is an exclusive characteristic of dirtbag left is to just be an extreme anti-establishment towards this government. This means your comment towards government is not going to be about like, oh, how are you going to spend your budget, but more so like, oh, your policy sucks and you need to change, you need to find for another things. However, you don't really explain to the world like what is then the alternative or how you're going to actually fix it. Most of the time, the manifestation of the back left is just to say that oh, government needs to change, but therefore then you lack the qualification to actually then prove why there needs to be change. That's why like internet celebrity like Hasan Piker have no standing whatsoever when discussing politics because he has no qualification or whatsoever. It's just some random ass citizen who just reads a bunch of articles and give their own opinion without the capacity then to actually engage with the opposite party insofar they haven't actually engaged the debate. 3 responses here then. First, their whole example about Janu Gemilang doesn't have a standing in this debate, Judge. This is not an issue of liberal politics, but rather a national issue entirely. A conservative can also be done about the Jalur Gemilang. A liberal can also be mad about this issue. Insofar their example, I don't see how it's relevant to the debate. But also number 2, they talk about, oh, parliament is useless, so fuck it, we need to question everyone. One, this is a problem on reforming the system and not a strategic approach of politics. This also then means, right, like on us of the house, we also allow people to be mad at party. So for example, right, like conservative right now can also be mad, for example, like to Parti Muda for being too liberal, right? This means that mechanism so far doesn't necessarily protect the interests of liberal parties specifically, but rather just like, it allows like anyone to engage with this. This mechanism doesn't necessarily fit, right? But also number 2, what benefits are you trying to achieve then if you don't particularly trust the system, right? Because they say, oh, parliament sucks. But if we criticize them enough, somehow parliament is going to listen. Like mechanization on how parliament then will suddenly like care and listen to these people, right? Because current criticism already exists. People already question. A lot of media platforms out there already asking parliaments what change you want to do. Opposite parties always then have the natural incentive to question the current government and say that, oh, you suck, right? Even if their intention is not something that is good, at least they have the natural incentive to make sure that they're going to take down the current government. This means then they don't necessarily, like, whatever benefits that they want to talk then doesn't necessarily materializes. At best, it stops at just questioning the government, but then like explaining on how you actually achieve justice. But thirdly, this is a wash, because on our side of the house, journalists still exist, news companies still exist, citizens' assembly still exists to question. A lot of the things that they want to talk about is the wash on our side of the house. But on that side of the house, it's like the benefits that they want to talk about becomes a lot more worse. Because dirtbag left is a style of extreme establishment, right? This means that in many cases, it's just to approach voters and trying to say that, oh, you need to be like more angry towards the government. But again, like the qualification or like the standing ground on, like to prove why it's actually likely this is the case. This means the counter model on our side is very much simple. We take a softer approach in not saying that, oh, government is horrible, but rather to say your opinion doesn't necessarily fit with the current societal moral value, and therefore you need to therefore a softer approach is something that's very much so necessary. Because the nature of dirtbag left is to be angry and therefore spread hate. If you automatically spread hate against the system that a lot of conservative people then buy into, this means that people then now have natural incentive to not even listen to you, right? Especially when you don't necessarily state the facts or whatsoever. This is why we rely on current existing mechanism. For example, when you vote for certain MPs, that person then represent you to then question the government. This is better because now at least you know that MP have a specific qualification. If you have some random Hasan Piker to question the government, who gives a shit, right? Because no one actually care, no one actually knows about him. This dude is not being like properly democratically elected, just some random dude that is just like volunteering to question the government, which is not, yeah, which is like everyone can do, right? But also, lastly, contradiction on their side of the house. They say parliament is bad, but then they also say parliament is going to create change. Before I move on to my argument, sure.
Is the dirtbag left?
No, right now it only exists in online presence. At best, it exists within online capacity. This debate is whether or not mainstream left-leaning political parties actually embrace and adopt this dirtbag left and manifest it into the physical presence. This then harms the current movement and the current approach of mainstream left-leaning political parties. Oh, the question becomes, if they don't have dirtbag left, what do? Present like normal people. I'll go to parliament, then actually present the facts, explain to people why this is likely the case. The outcome to this is simple. People are likely to buy to your facts because it's not out of passion, it's not out of anger, but rather out of rationality as to how you want the change to begin with. Two simple arguments for my speech is one, how's likely the dirtbag left to manifest? To manifest, but also number two, why instigating irrational debate is something that's particularly harmful. First argument on how's likely the dirtbag left to manifest, right? This context here is very much so simple. Right now, it's only manifested online. Therefore, it cannot be applicable in physical presence because one, in online presence, there's a limited capacity for you to engage because at best you can only engage in comment section and not necessarily to actually see the people, right? Even if you have those random debate with some university students, again, the lack of qualification just make these people seem like a clown saying things that they think they know, but doesn't necessarily have the facts to prove it or like to validate to then give like some validation to the facts to begin with, right? This means if you apply this on physical presence, it cannot be effective because people don't actually know whether or not people are engaging in politics. Brandon already explains to you, on online presence, you don't actually engage with others' opinion. This means that if you apply this to physical presence, most likely people think this thing is going to succeed, but at the end of the day, it just pushes people out. Because the problem, the issue with conservative parties is that they genuinely believe in the value that they hold. Therefore, if you approach with hate, they would not want to go to you. Only when you approach with a softer stance and you actually explain why this is something that's particularly important, only then you are able to achieve whatever benefits that they want to claim to begin with. Oppose.
Kero for the speech. Before we go to speeches, can I go to the toilet? Oh, no one's go. No. Oh. Yeah. Lovely.
Give me a minute to organize my notes, please. Begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, today's debate is about the styling of the mediums, styling of mediums have an actual valuable impact in the world of influence. So we're talking about political influence as a whole, right? So let's be real, like if saying, we need structural reform, right, in a calm and composed voice was enough to fix society, then we would already be living in La La Land by now. But we don't have that, right? This is because without a good standing of dirtbag left on, that's what we're proposing, right? We are basically going to be living in the pockets, we're basically going to be lining the pockets of politicians, billionaires, for people who don't even care what the voters even want, right, in the first place. So we're not going to care of voters' passions if we opt for a side opposition. So looking at someone like Hasan, right? So it may be a love-hate relationship in this kind of situation because he has a million of viewers, that watch his videos and everything, and that is reach and that is resonance because you are able to actually resonate with someone who is on par with you, right? Who is in the working class, who actually resonates with what you feel, how you feel, and what is your take on the current political situations, right? So I think in the current social surroundings, right, people are just really, really tired of side opposition's vanilla statements, right? So you just sugarcoat everything, saying that you are just making your agenda sound sweet, but in the end, there is actually no effectiveness in the sense that in comparison to what government is actually trying to propose to you. So what is coming from side opposition is just basically you just look at the teleprompter, you just read whatever they say, and okay, so we're supposed to agree, right? So that may have just be the three things that I favor the most: lies, deceit, and deception, right? So this is what they are favoring, but this is something that we go against because dirtbag life is basically how actual people would speak. And yes, we may concede that okay, maybe it isn't the most polite thing, right? But it neither is the inability to solve actual problems like climate change and everything. So, before I move on, let's go into the clarifications that I have to give in this debate. Number one, our side, we're not trying to say that we want to promote anger towards the government, but we are talking about social justice on its own, right? Secondly, you also said that your side has a safer approach, but never in your first and second speech did you actually mention what is that approach, right? You never mechanized it in the first place. And even if you say that you have a so-called safer approach, do you really think it's going to work? Do you actually think in this current status quo, it's even going to make any slight changes or difference, right? Because if you look at the current world, do you actually think a soft standing would actually have an impact on our world, right? Moving on. You also said that we imply that Parliament is useless. Never once in our speeches we imply that Parliament is useless. We only said that the bills that are being tabled nowadays do not actually cater to the needs of society of the current world. It's not effective enough to actually solve real world problems like climate change, education, healthcare. It's not solving shit, right? So moving on, you also talked about qualification, and I just think that's the most bullshit that you could spew here because what qualification do I need to give an opinion? Do you think I have to have a master's degree in social justice just so that I can say I don't like you? I do not need any sort of a qualification just to have an opinion, right? Now, what we're trying to say is that the softer approach that side opposition is going for are what people nowadays are just sick of. We are sick that you have a soft approach on things that actually matter, right? We do not need it, and we know that our alternative of a dirtbag approach is way more valuable compared to your side, right? So, what is the biggest clash in today's debate, right? So, the biggest clash is effectiveness versus appropriateness. On opposition, you said that the tone of speech, it may be vulgar, inappropriate, aggressive, etc. But and that the manner is not suitable for the political surroundings, right? But we say that dirtbag left policy is a more effective political standing for a medium of communication, and it's a medium style that connects with actual majority of voters. So voters who want the raw truth, people who want you to actually have change in society, right? These are working class people. These are voters who do not want your cotton candy bullshit. The reason government wins this clash is because today effective communication in politics is based on two things. Number one, it is reach, and number two, it is resonance. With none of it you have, right? So you condemning behaviors of political snakes who act like Indian aunties is just basically spewing lies, On our side, we pride on the sense of urgency because that are things that are necessary. We support bills that are actually in line with things that we need, not things that you think that you need, like the Jalo Gemilang thing, right? It's not something that's urgent right now. And that is what we're trying to say. Now, moving on to what you have given us today, right? You have told us that you think that parliament policy is intact with reality. You think you gave us a burden saying why dirtbag left policy is needed in the first place, right? So let me tell you why. The reason why public policy is not intact with reality is because they don't actually affect what is happening now, right, in our current world. So on our side, we push for the things that have intensity to cater for the working class, for people who actually have a need, for people who actually want the change. And then to your burden that you push towards us, right, why dirtbag left people is needed when you have left leaning people or some shit, right? The reason is because they actually point out or call out whatever that isn't done by the general public, right? We tell you what's the problem because that's our voice and our opinion and it matters, right? Number two, if you do good, then there's also going to be call outs. But the thing that we want to prove is that even if there's shit, even if there's good things, we are going to call it out in our policies, right? It will also cater to everyone, and this also includes the working class. Now, you also talked about how there is an echo chamber of people who talk about this. We agree, yes, there is. But however, the thing that we want to show you here is that comment section of people who talk about this actually have a change in society. It actually gives us impacts, right? So, also, a question that I want to ask to side opposition is, do you really think that, and it's being an anti-capitalist hatred, right? Because that is what you're trying to portray to us today. Right, okay, now moving on. You also said that we can't really, we didn't show you, we didn't give you the mechanisms to even foster to our side, right? But in Vidhya's speech, I've told you time and time again how we are going to implement this, why we stand for this change, right? So we look at things that need change. We look at things that actually have a solution in today's world, right? So now, moving on, um, is to our burden, right? Our burden was which side caters to people the most, right? On our side, we have proved to you two things. Number one is the sense of urgency, and number two is the sense of engagement. Under urgency, the reason we take this debate is because we actually look at real life problems from real life people who actually feel the change, right? We do not look at people like billionaires who don't even get affected by the slightest change that you think you have. Number two is engagement, right? We actually have active participation of people who are involved in the problems, right? For example, like climate change or education systems failures or healthcare system failures. People who are involved in those problems are the people who actually voice out their opinions. And that is why we take today's debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdul, for the speech. The qualitative thing of that as a topic.
That is.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna first explain panel a few things. I'm gonna start with my clashes first of all, right? Number one, in terms of why this entire thing only works online and why we prove this, right? Number one, even if you want to claim that okay, this thing may actually work, whatever, we already explained that even if it does, it gives a false illusion that it only works online, right? Which basically means that it already cannot translate to real life. Few reasons why as to this and why it's true. Number one, the fact that you have something called an online bias. You have an algorithm that makes you think that something is actually like the general consensus or whatever, right? Which means that basically it's already because of the way algorithms work, right? If I, for example, like a liberal, if I as a liberal, like for example a liberal post, whatever, obviously my feed is gonna be bombarded by like posts about liberalism and stuff like that, right? Which means the propensity for you to actually penetrate into like circles of like conservatism and all are already very, very low. Just because you don't already buy into this entire narrative to begin with. Right? Basically, second of all, it also gives you a sense of illusion that oh, you're already penetrating into these very, very hard to penetrate circles to begin with. That's because it's already been shown to you so much, right, on your side in your feed or whatever, right? Basically, it makes you think that you already have that already like enough. That you're already doing enough, or like for example, your liberalism movement already is already doing enough as it is, right? Which basically already proves to you why there's a false sense that it basically gives you that illusion, right? But also then panel in terms of like the comment sections of these entire posts and all, right? Brendan has already come and tell you the fact that they already rely on emotional strategies to begin with, right? Or like emotional like ways of like for example like giving you information or whatever, instead of the actual useful factual stuff that we champion for on our side of the house, right? This was like for example rage bait stuff, like for example getting more views. The fact that you're already using this online already means that you already obviously probably want the most views, which means that you're likely to actually like probably exaggerate stuff or just rage bait the shit out of whatever you're trying to post just to be able to get the most views and garner the most likes and comments and stuff like that, right? Which already proves to you why we win in terms of that. But also then panel in terms of like in terms of the actual like nature of the people that are on these apps and these platforms to begin with, right? Note that we already tell you to begin with that these people are already very, very emotional, right? They already use emotional sentiments to be able to push out their agendas of like liberalism or whatever, right? Which means the propensity for then these people to actually start and actually hating on you, should you actually question or actually should you like question their behaviors or like question certain opinions of theirs, right? It's already very, very high because these people already are very, very emotional. You yourself, then the most likely scenario is that you won't even actually start to actually question them. You just blindly believe whatever you follow, at which point you're probably not actually going to fight for the cause to begin with, right? But then panel, Aiman also comes and deposits to you that this data that you actually have, it's only available to MPs, right? It's only available to people who are actually like physically very, very involved in the political scene to begin with, not some random ass streamer or whatever. So, not like some random ass streamer from like twitch.com or whatever, which basically means that the only way you're actually able to have access to this like very important information and like this data to begin with is if you already have access to these registries, which basically only means that you already are a very, very prominent member in the physical political scene to begin with, right? Which you cannot get on the online sphere. Also then panel in terms of buy-in, right? And why we win in terms of that clash. Number one, note that that side of the house comes and tells you that parliaments only work, or like depositing stuff through the parliament or tapping stuff only works when politicians already want to hear your voices to begin with. We tell you that okay, at least on our side of the house, you are not perpetuating the cycle of like villainizing your own liberalism movement because of the fact of like a few reasons, right? Number one, note that we already tell you rely on vulgarity, you rely on rage bait, you rely on stirring up the emotions of some people of like
people to begin with, right? Which is the main medium of you being able to push for change. Number one, this is something that's very bad because number one, obviously, you're giving them more ammo. You're giving the right-wing people more ammo to actually be able to hate on you, right? You're villainizing them. The fact that I'm making fun of a politician, the fact that I'm relying on like making a snide remark about one of the right-wing politicians already means that I'm already giving them the ability to actually shit on me even more, right? But even then, panel, I'll take you later. But even then, panel, if you don't want to believe that, we already tell you the fact that these people already. The fact that even if these people were to actually want to buy into your movement to begin with, these conservatives, whatever, right, they're obviously less likely to do this because of the fact that when you already resort to having to make snide remarks, to having to make like very, very, stupid humor jokes about like these kind of, about their favorite right-wing politician to begin with, this already means that on that side of the house, from the conservatives' point of view, they're just less likely to actually want to buy into your movement because you see it as a personal attack. You're already inherently wanting to stir up their emotions, and then when you stir their emotions and they actually don't want to, and they don't want to buy into your entire movement, you question why it doesn't even work in the first place. But also then, panel, we also come and tell you that you're also leaving room for this entire thing to be demonized by the right-wing politicians to begin with, right? Know these politicians already are against you. They already are looking for reasons to actually want to hate on you and to basically paint you in a very bad light and your movement in a very bad light, right? Which means that basically you're leaving room for them to actually start to hate on you, which already paints yourself in a very bad light. This is compounded, panel, by the effect of when the right-wing actually shows that, oh, they actually have the factual data to present that certain cases, even though it may be somewhat incorrect, or even though it may not actually be resonate with a lot of people. The fact that they are the only party that's actually showing you the data and showing actual proper facts and all already means that on that side of the house, it's just going to be seen as more credible to them, it's more credible to the general population, right? I'll take you later. But then also, panel, in terms of this entire thing, right? We already tell you why it's so important to change the. But even then, panel, the only at the very best for this entire clash, the only thing that you actually get is to be able to change the minds of already or to be able to increase the buy-in from liberals to begin with, right? There's no point if I'm a liberal, I'm obviously already going to buy into this entire movement because I'm already a liberal. You're not actually going to change the conservatives' point of view, which is already something that's very, very important because you need the conservatives' buy-in to be able to actually be able to gather the most change, right? But then, panel, is also in terms of the inside the house, how they said they actually will not be promoting anger or anything, right? We already tell you the fact that you rely on snide remarks to begin with already means that you already have an incentive or you already have an intention to promote anger and emotions to begin with, right? But even if you don't directly do that, you will obviously anger will be bred in these entire forums, right? These, for example, 4chan or whatever, right? These forums that will obviously have people just talking about these kind of things in a very, very unregulated, very, very immature way. It's obviously going to breed anger at some point and escalate to the point where we already tell you it's very, very bad. But also then, panel, in terms of how they on that side of the house, they said that you don't need a master's or whatever to criticize these people, to be able to criticize the government, right? Where you tell you at the very least, yeah, you don't need masters, but you need very, very credible data, right? Which already Aiman tells you, number one, you can only get if you're very, very active in the physical political scene. But also then number two, you cannot get even if you get some random guy on your side to be able to spur these facts or whatever, the chances of it actually being very, very inconsistent and very, very just rage baiting is already very, very high. Because the fact that the barrier of entry for you to actually be able to buy into this is something that's very, very low on that side of the house. Second question in terms of stakeholders panel, we already tell you why we cater more to the old people, the older generation of these people who are the most conservatives, right? Because when we win in terms of being able to get the older generation, we win in terms of being able to get the most conservatives just because of how older generation, most of them are conservatives, right? In this particular thing, which means we already win in terms of being able to get the most voter base, the most high quality voter base will actually be able to champion, drive the most change, right? Because like we already explained, getting liberals on your side isn't going to do much. You need to get the conservatives on your side. In terms of effectiveness for change, what we've done in my entire speech, we've number one explained why we get more buy-in because you just take them that more seriously, but also number two, how we cater to the best stakeholder that will actually be able to drive for change. Very proud to propose.
Thank you to Abuden for the incentives to open up the reply features and program open reply.
Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Government loses this debate for 3 reasons. The first, their argument does not represent what dirtbag left is. Most of their benefit is at best a wash because on our side of the house, we are also able to criticize. But number 2, we say we're going to flip this. It's going to create a lot more worse outcome on that side of the house. Because with snarky remarks and saying things like burning the parliament, leave less and less room for you to actually have good policy to be passed. Because in order for you to actually create change, you need both sides of political ideology to buy into your movement, not only liberalism, but also the conservative. Because 3 then, only then when you are able to pass through the system by explaining rationally as to why there's a capacity or there's a necessity for change without adding any elements of anger, only then you are able then to actually pass any form of policy. Two things that I'm going to explain in my reply stage. The first, we think that the main problem with that side of the house is that the justification on the adoption of dirtbag left is because in so far that it manifests in online presence, it creates an illusion of success. All three speakers from opposition bench explain to you over and over again as to why this cannot happen. Because in online presence, when you have Hasan Piker or university students debating with Charlie Kirk, for example, it creates spaces that you already subscribe to. This means that whenever you engage with this material, it creates an illusion that, oh, people actually believe in what you said. In reality, it doesn't actually engage with the nuances of politics. Because to them, all the issues that they give on their speech, all the examples, it's not nuances to the actual debate, like to the actual difficult questions that we have. So, for example, right, when it comes to like issues such as like pro-life or pro-choices, how can you actually explain to conservatives saying things like, oh, pro-choice is actually a good thing, without actually explaining why that's something that's legitimate? At best, you say, oh, that is wrong. Oh, it's my body, my choice, but doesn't actually explain to conservative why this is something that you must buy into. Only when then we are able to remove all this anger, remove all these snarky remarks, we are able to kind of like break through the barrier of the conservative. Number two, why is our counter alternative better? The first counter alternative is just simply on the fact that we have natural incentive of voters. Therefore, whichever MP that you vote for, they have the natural incentive to pass the policy because you vote them for this particular policy. But also number two, I think it's particularly important then to note the difference between MP that you elect, not only in terms of having access to data, but also number two, in having the proper confidence of people. It's a huge gap with those who just give their random ass opinion. This means in order for this problem or like for this solution to actually manifest, you then need someone who actually have the qualification for people to listen to. At best, on that side of the house, you have a lot more people saying things like, oh, true, I don't agree with how the government works. But at point of which you don't present any solution, it's that point of which you fail. Insofar, they only list out a shit ton of problem in their speech, but never actually explain to us how this is likely then to manifest into something good, on how you are actually able to create change. Therefore, the reason why opposition bench win in this debate is because number one, our burden is simply to prove why dirtbag left, once you adopt it into the actual approach of leaning left political parties, it cannot manifest because manifesting anger on physical presence doesn't actually lead you to change. Maybe you can bring protests like burning, vandalism, or whatever, but at point of which you create this sense of like aggressiveness within your movement, most likely you're going to lock out a lot of people. But also number two, we tell you that the idea of dirtbag left is something that, like, if you want to exist, sure, but it can still exist within the bubble of online presence. I don't think we're ready yet to then bring it into physical presence or the actual approach of leaning left political parties or both.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. Thank you. Oh. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Algorithm. I need my pen. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, please take note that third speaker came out and talked about something. A new material came out about how algorithm affects and everything, right? Because second speaker onwards just talk about echo chamber. They don't explain or mechanize anything about that. But third speaker came out and therefore. But you know what? We are being very, very charitable, very, very, very kind. We're still going to engage with your algorithm point, right? Okay, even if you are trying to say that the echo chambers, first of all, we are going to tell you that echo chambers does not exist because even in the Kamala Harris and Trump election, right? Every single media, every single one posted about everything because that is the job of media to cater to people about the information that is actually in the political system, right? That is the function of media. So it's up to people after that and what they want to do. That is why comment section actually exists. Debate like this actually exists because we talk about it, we deliberate about it, we go into the roots of it, because people are not stupid to just believe a person talking like that. Obviously, we will ponder upon it, right? So, and even if, right, so basically I'm telling you that in our side of the world, at least we're trying to say that we are bringing the truth to people. In your side of the world, you're just trying to cover up everything, and you're just trying to sugarcoat everything, which does not make any sense from the beginning itself, right? And okay, what is actually unique on our side of the world, right? We're trying to tell you that our political party actually embraces this dirtbag thing, Beyond your side of the world, that people don't want to talk about it. The ministers don't want to talk about it. They don't want to reveal their secrets. Don't want to reveal their corruption. But we embrace it. It's not about people coming out, the third party or the activists coming out online and talking about it. That is different. We are talking about, like, for example, now Anwar is actually answering for all his questions and all his corruption that he's actually doing. That is what we're talking about. What we are not telling that, you guys are keep talking about how, like, people will see it on online and everything, right? So another thing is that when we're talking about is that y'all talk about how conservative people in our side of the world, will actually be affected and everything. Okay. What's the point, right? At least in our side, there's actually an effort to push these conservative people to be more liberal and everything. But in your side of the world, you are sticking to the damn status quo, man. So what? So if they actually don't agree to it, right? Because the majority people are actually voting right now are youngsters, and in our side of the world, we cater to them. We allow them because we put in a sense of trust. Because our side of the world government political system have more accountability, more transparency, and so on, which does not exist on your side of the world. And what else? Okay, and also the final thing that we are pushing for is urgency, right? Number one, why is this really, really important that we have to have the dirt back compared to whatever parliament talk you all have and everything, right? So basically, we're trying to tell you that this is the last cost thing already. It's urgent. It's the final, because nobody will actually listen to you once they have the power and the money and the position they have right now, right? And second thing, we are talking about engagement, right? We are the only side that engaging with the public. And who's the public? The voters of the political system itself, right? We are the ones supposed to voice out. So these two things that we are proving today, urgency and engagement, directly connects to our burden today, that we are the one providing and catering for the public itself, because that is the politicians' function, right? You cater for them, you accept their speeches and then their criticism and everything, and then you take the bill and you go to the parliament, then you table it, because in your side of the world, you don't even actually feel to what is the actual problem that these people are actually facing, because you don't do the groundwork, bro. You just go in parliament and do shits there, right? So with that, panel, for greater good outcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, government, for explaining. We not want it as well said.
Good job, guys.
Oh, good job.